Assalamu alaikum, wonderful humans. I hope you're fantastic and I hope you're doing really, really well. Welcome to our second episode of that behavior change show for the fit and the faithful. The fit and the faithful part, that's a new bit. Okay, so let's talk about this phenomena, this effect, right? This psychological experience that I have seen in a lot of women that I've worked with, hundreds of women from all over the globe, right? And this is actually it's a scientific term, right? A disclaimer, everything I say on this show is backed up by science. It's not my opinion. It's not just my experience, right? As someone with a master's in psychology of mental health and well-being, I'm very passionate about ensuring whatever strategies I use, they do have scientific evidence around them. My job is to take the science, right, and tailor it to the person in front of me. That's how we as health and fitness professionals should help people. However, a lot of us don't do that, but then that's a whole different story. Okay, so this thing that I wanted to talk about is called the what the hell effect. And I think they titled that because it's what a lot of people tend to think about when they have this experience. Essentially, it just means it's an effect where people stop working on their goals after achieving a minor setback, right? Which then causes them to indulge even more. Let me share an example. Let's say I'm trying to lose weight and I go, yep, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to jump on this diet because some auntie's doing the same diet. She's cutting out sugar. She's cutting out carbs. She's doing all of these things because that's what people tend to do when they're trying to lose weight. I don't understand why, but social media has a huge role to play in that. But I'm going on a diet, right? So I'm eating really clean. I hate that term. This is why it's in quotation, but again, that's a different story. I'm eating really clean. I'm eating only natural foods and all of this, right? And then suddenly I had a really bad day. The kids wouldn't stop messing about. I had a fight with my spouse. Work really stressed me out and I have a deadline to reach. So what do? I grab a packet of cookies. You know what? Let's say 2 packets of cookies. Let's go super high because the kids really got on my nerves today. 2 packs of cookies, right? And now I'm sitting there going, what the hell? I'm trying to lose weight. I've been on this diet. I've been so good all of this time. And now I just inhaled 2 packets of cookies. What the hell? I may just have another packet because why not, right? I already messed up on the diet. Okay. Now what tends to happen is Yusra now has given up on everything that she's been trying because of a minor setback, because she had a bad day and she had cookies and now her goals are out the window. Let me ask you this. How many of us have experienced this? Yeah, majority of people I've worked with, majority of people who've come into my world, one of the biggest issues, in my opinion, in terms of their, not just their inability to lose weight, but to keep the weight off, is this effect. It's, I was so good when I started the diet, but then I had XYZ, which ultimately means I became really bad. And then I stopped. I couldn't go back to all the good things I was doing, right? So the diet stopped. And if I lost weight, it came all back. If I haven't lost weight, I just gave up on the journey altogether, right? One of the biggest issues of one of the biggest causes, I want to say, of this effect is the all or nothing mentality. A lot of people, whenever they start a journey, right? They go all out. They think, you know what, if I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to do it perfectly. I'm going to train 7 days a week. I'm going to cut sugars. I'm going to stop chapatis. I'm going to stop eating rice. I'm only going to have boiled chicken. By the way, who eats boiled chicken? Like, yeah, I'm going to have boiled chicken and salad and that's it, right? Because I'm going to eat clean, right? Now, unfortunately, we're human and we have behaviors and we have habits and we like cakes and we like cookies and all of these things. While we can sustain these new behaviors for a short period of time, like cutting up the foods that you love, right? You probably can do it for a week or 2 or 3 or even 4. I mean, stretch it to 6 weeks. But what tends to happen is you're going to miss these foods a heck of a lot, right? And then there's going to come a day when you're super stressed or you're super annoyed or your cycle is closed. Don't you just love those when you're close to your cycle and you want to eat everything in your path? Yeah, we've all had those days, right? Right? Or your cycle is closed and now your inability to say no to those foods is diminished. Your cognitive capacity to say, no, I'm not going to have cake. I haven't had cake for 3, 4 weeks. I can say no to that cake, right? That ability is diminished. And because you've missed cake so much, because you've cut it out for 4 weeks, you just go at it, right? You just indulge, right? And then after that, the guilt sets in. Oh my God, why did I do this? I've done it again. This is why I can never diet. I'm a failure. You start to build up all of these stories about yourself, right? Which make you feel really guilty. And because you're feeling really guilty, what do? You have some more cake to make yourself feel better from the guilt that you're feeling, right? It's a vicious cycle. But that cycle started with what? Right? It didn't start with you having the cake in the first place. Do you know what I mean? It literally started with you thinking, I need to cut out all of these things to be healthy. I need to cut out cake. I need to restrict. I need to go all in. And that is a mistake that a lot of people make because we're human. Food is more than just calories. It's a part of it. It's a part of our culture. When you eat, have you ever had a certain type of food and it reminded you of your mom or your grandmother's cooking and it just made you feel happy inside? Right? Food is more than just calories. And when we're working with people, when you are going on a diet or you're trying to be healthy, you need to remember that, right? So what kind of action steps? Now I'm going to give you action steps that you can take away and start implementing that can help you. If you're someone who's trying to lose weight or improve your behaviors, these are the things that you can do. Okay. The first thing is set realistic goals. Right? Just remember, you're a human, you're not a machine. So when you want to make changes, go one step at a time. Be realistic with the kind of changes you can start making because, hey, if you go all out and you try to change too many things, your psychology is going to fight you. It's going to fight you like mad. Okay, it's really going to fight you because it sees it, okay, we are going to this unfamiliar place, right? Our brain is there to protect us. Whenever we start anything that's new, right, it can tend to freak out and say, okay, we're going to this unfamiliar place. I don't know it. It's uncertain. Then you start to build up all of these stories in your head. You start to make excuses and all of these things until you stop. So the best way to tackle that is start slow. Start with have realistic expectations. Start with small steps. Like if you're someone who has a lot of ultra processed, like your cakes and cookies for breakfast, start changing that. Forget your lunch and your dinner right now. Start saying, you know what? For 2 days a week, I'm going to have eggs in the morning instead of cakes and cookies. Start there. Get used to eating more nutritious food for breakfast 2 times a week, right? When 2 times a week becomes easier, say, you know what? Okay, I'm going to now attempt to eat more nutritious breakfast 3 times a week. Let me see how that goes. And what that does is you're slowly charming your brain into those changes. Going, okay, we're making changes, but the changes are not so big that it freaks me out, right? But at the same time, also understanding that you're going to have some days when you're not going to be able to do your nutritious breakfast meals, right? That's when the second point comes in, which then talks about learning to use the guilt to your advantage. The problem isn't the guilt. Look, if you're feeling guilty about a certain behavior, it's only because the goal that you're trying to achieve is important to you. So guilt isn't always a bad thing. As Muslims, Allah put the guilt conscious in us as a monitoring tool, as a guide. So when we commit a sin, we feel guilty for committing that sin in the hopes of stopping. So the guilt can make us stop committing that sin or engaging in that behavior that I know I shouldn't engage as a Muslim. The same thing here. You feel guilty for eating that cake and cookie because you want more for your health. That's a good thing. I would be concerned if people didn't feel guilty for eating crap all day, right? But what we do with that guilt is absolutely key. Are you going to allow the guilt to make you indulge even more, to play the victim, to say, oh, no, see, I can't do it. I always fail, blah, 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 blah. Or you're going to say, you know what? I intended to have a nutritious breakfast today, but I didn't manage to do it, right? Step back. Don't be emotional about it. Look at it logically. How come you didn't do it? Right? It could be you didn't plan for it properly. It could be that, you got interrupted. It could be you didn't have a backup plan, maybe. If I don't have eggs, I'm going to eat this instead. All of these things are important in strategies. Obviously, it's the things that I coach my athletes around, right? In my behavior change programs. So what you could do is sit back and think, okay, why wasn't I able to achieve this goal today of eating nutritious breakfast? Think about it from a logical perspective. I know we are emotional beings, but sometimes we need to think about it logically, because when we can think about it logically, we can be more realistic, right? Okay, breakfast didn't go great. Tomorrow, I am going to make sure I have system XYZ in play so that I can improve my chances of engaging in this behavior of consuming nutritious breakfast. So you're using that guilt as a tool for planning, as a tool for growth, as a tool for doing better tomorrow, not as a tool to criticize yourself and break yourself down and call yourself names, because that is often the biggest mistake that people make. Not being able to get back to their new normal, not being able to continue to engage in these all cool new behaviors that they're building after a setback. You have to continue. You've had a bad day, suck it up, get up, and continue. Okay? That's the second point. The third point is do what you say you'll do. Now, this is a fine balance between discipline and compassion. Well, what I tend to find in my area of work is you have two groups of people. One group, they're so disciplined, they're perfectionists, they want things to be perfect all the time. I said I'm gonna do this, so I am going to do it, and if I don't do it, it means I'm incapable, I'm weak, and all of this. So you find these people in the all mindset, like they're all in 100%. And then the other group of people, they're on the nothing mindset. Yeah, whatever. They're so compassionate with themselves, right? You know what? I wanted to work out today, but I'm so tired. So I'm going to do some self-care. I'm going to have a nice warm bath instead. Do you know what I mean? And this person is having a warm bath every single day because they're tired every single day. So they're playing the compassionate card every single day, right? So what tends to happen is none of these extremes are helpful, because when you're so disciplined and when you have a day where it didn't go as perfect as you wanted it to go, eventually you're going to burn yourself out and give up because of your constantly criticizing yourself, and that can get really emotionally draining and tiring. Then, of course, you have this other group of people who just ignore their health because they're constantly making excuses, almost proud of their laziness to some extent, but again, that's a whole different story. So none of these are helpful. Where you want to be is to find this beautiful balance between discipline and compassion. In Islam, we talk about living in hope and fear, subhanallah, right? A fear in Allah so that we avoid doing the sins, but hope in Allah's forgiveness that He will forgive us for the sins that we did commit. Right? This is not remotely the same, but it's the best analogy that I can think about in terms of how we can balance discipline and compassion. So yeah, have a plan in action. Be disciplined. Do what you say you'll do to the best of your ability, and be honest with yourself. Right? Don't just say you're going to do this and totally ignore it and make excuses. No, do your best to do what you say you'll do. But if life happens, and life is going to happen, you're going to wake up one morning where you planned to go out and do your workout or go for your walk or prepare a delicious lunch, but then you woke up and you have a sick child who needs you all day, or you have a deadline at work that you forgot about and you're going, oh my God, I need to do this. Right? Days like that are going to happen. Scenarios like that are going to come into play, and you may not be able to do what you say you'll do, and that is when compassion kicks in. It's like, look, I wanted to do this. I really intended to do this. I was intentional, right? But I couldn't do it. You have a reason you couldn't do it. Khalas, no worries, plan for it tomorrow. That part of self-compassion, when the day doesn't go when it doesn't go the way you wanted it to go, is absolutely key. Because when you don't have that, how your day turns out is you criticize yourself, you call yourself names. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, eventually you stop altogether. Now, if we flip the other way around, right, and say we start with self-compassion and then we do the discipline part, the problem is if you're always compassionate with yourself, you'll never be disciplined. You'll never do the things that you'll say you'll do, because this is going to take over all the time. So always aim to, look, I am going to challenge myself. I'm going to be in the discomfort. I know I don't like to exercise, and you shouldn't like to exercise. You should do it because your goals should be deeper than that, but that's a whole other episode, right? But I'm going to get up and exercise anyway because it's important to me, right? But then, like I said, your day plays out and you don't get to exercise. That self-compassion has to kick in, because that day was absolutely out of your control. If you sit there and criticize yourself, all that's going to do is it's going to make you stop and give up on the journey altogether. Okay, so those are the three things that you can sit back and think about and implement as you're trying to be healthier and fitter and maybe lose some weight. So like I said, number one, set realistic goals. You're a human, you're not a machine. The behaviors that you have now are the behaviors that you've built all your life. So when you're changing them, you want to take it one step at a time so that your mindset, your psychology doesn't freak out on you. There is a psychological aspect to this journey. People don't talk about that. Your standard social media nutrition guru isn't going to talk about that. Your celebrity guru isn't going to talk about the psychological aspect of this journey. It is huge, and it is harder to tackle than the physiological. When you can handle your psychology, eating healthy is easier. Exercising is easier. It starts here. So you need to understand how to approach this journey. Okay, so the first thing is set realistic goals. Number two, learn to get back to your new normal after a mishap. Allow the guilt that you're feeling to be a tool for growth, not a tool to break you down. Number three, have a balance between discipline and compassion. Okay, I would love to, on these episodes, to know if this landed for you, if it resonated with you, because how that's going to help me is it's going to help me create more content that's going to serve you. Give me ideas on what kind of content you want to see on this podcast, because again, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. Alhamdulillah, I've worked with hundreds of women from all over the world. So I have a lot up here, right? But I would love to know what's important to you so that I can make sure the things that I share on here are actually going to be helpful, things that you can actually take away and implement, inshallah. And if you're ever stuck, if you ever need support, if you ever need someone to handhold you through your journey, reach out and let's have a conversation. Okay? Assalamu alaikum.